having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
You have unread texts from Golf Buds. Would you like me to read them?
Yes.
Okay. Johnny says, what are the nicotine pouches you had on the course? Walker says, 8 milligram on nicotine pouches. Billy says, I love the mint one.
I like that one.
Walker says, me too. By the way, you both stink at golf. LOLOL.
Come on. Carry on nicotine pouches. Shop now at onnicotine.com/group text. Warning, this product contains nicotine. Nicotine is an addictive chemical.
This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, good morning. Good morning and welcome to Open Line. I'm Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly. Today, a beautiful day for much of the province by all accounts, and the Gremlins are working today, Dave. You know the drill. Numbers to get on the air, 273-5211, the old 709, of course. Long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM. That's 8626. And you can always email openline@vocm.com. But we'd much rather you call the show because it is an open line television program. So you go to bed thinking you're doing one thing and all of a sudden you're in the big chair. So bear with me as I catch up on all the other news that's on the go today. And there's a lot of it this time of year. So much about to happen in the province, not the least of which is Canada Games. Final pushes on to reach that big laudable goal of 5,000 volunteers. We know they're close. Heard Karen Sheriff's on this morning just saying they're into that final little push. So if you've got the time to spare and you want to take in some of the action for free while, providing your own volunteer services, always a great time. And, schmooze and meet all the athletes and be a part of the whole festivity. It's going to be, she's going to be on wheels. Let's see, and so much more. But let's stick with sports for a minute. Of course, tonight could be the night. The Cup will be in Florida. Panthers have a chance to repeat as Stanley Cup champions against the Oilers tonight. I have to say, McDavid looked, I'll just say, uninspired after missing a couple of glorious chances early on in the game the other night. Saturday night. Seemed to throw his hands up at one point. That's never a good sign. In frustration. Bit snake bitten, bad luck, gets in your head no matter who you are. The inches that he's missed a couple of big, what would have been huge goals, maybe tide-turning goals. Feels like he should score and set up one every time, but they got to bounce back tonight if they want to force Game 7 back in Edmonton on Friday. And the Jays will try to right the ship tonight when they welcome the Arizona Diamondbacks to town, almost down to just baseball now of the major sports. Love it. Jays fan, yes, but baseball fan first. I am watching. I was watching last night, yesterday, Ohtani do some throwing some simulated innings. Shohei Ohtani. Not just me, but the whole team. Watching behind the batting cage, watching him pitch, just watching him throw some. Some simulated innings. His own teammates who can watch him anytime, all lined up behind the batting cage just to see what he's got. He takes the mound on top of his hitting. That's going to be a spectacle, to say the least. And Canada opens its campaign for the Gold Cup, CONCACAF Championship. That's tonight, actually, 12 a.m. Newfoundland time versus Honduras. And we all remember the big Honduras game back at King George V back in the 80s. Which punched Canada's first ever ticket to the World Cup. So I don't think it'll be the rain and fog and sideways weather that it was here back at 2, 4, 3, 5 degrees back in the 80s. But go Canada, go. And I'm happy to talk sports, any sport, all day here. We can even go back to the finish at the U.S. Open on the weekend. That was a piece of work, too, and never took my eyes off it. That was theater at its best. And call me crazy. And I heard that. But it kind of feels like an election's coming. How do I know? Well, I was at the site of the new penitentiary, which is due to open, they say now, possibly by 2019. They say possibly only that would be any unforeseen delays, and God knows we can have those at any time. So there was the announcement of the pen yesterday, groundbreaking, a deal. It wasn't just a complete fluff. They had the big old excavator there ready to literally break the first ground on the site, which, should have been back in around 2022. But you would have to think, and, I don't give a pass all the time on the COVID excuse. It's getting a little beyond that now, but certainly 2019, 2020, and 21, 22 were tough times to get a big project like that underway, with the moving target on costs and supply chains and labor shortages and on and on and on it goes. So there was that today, and today they're going to give an update. Infrastructure Minister Elvis Lovelace, busy man. Today he'll update the situation with the Kenmount Terrace School, which we know the doubters are out there, the skeptics are out there. I mean, there's, without ground broken and talk of opening it by 2026, it seems, I don't know how that would happen unless it's one of these modular homes, but I don't think they have modular schools, not yet anyway, although we had them back in the 70s, but that was a whole different kettle of fish. So we can talk about that, of course. The Premier Hogan, of course, was meeting with the governors in the States last couple of days. It's kind of overshadowed a little bit, of course, by the G7 meetings with Carney and Mr. Trump out west in Alberta at Kananaskis. Mr. Trump has departed the scene now. But by all accounts, that was, in and out, not too much, no controversy, no blow-ups, no talking behind people's backs, and pretty respectful. He was in and out. He's got bigger fish to fry, of course, now. When we're watching the concerning, to say the least, we have flare-ups in the Middle East all the time. This just feels like another level as many of the Gulf states start to alienate Iran, now that they don't have their proxies to be able to do their fighting and their retaliatory strikes against Israel for whatever comes back and forth. So it continues, internationally we can talk any of that. It's happening in our world, but it's it's hard. You want to keep an eye on it, and you want to know when when it gets to that breaking point that you really should be paying attention. We should always be paying attention and keep it in the back of our minds, because there's something to be learned about all of that for all of us as we live through history, literally. All right, Dave, off to the break, and back in a moment. Welcome back to the program. What are we doing, Dave? I'm not going to gab away here. I always say if we've got callers, those are the priority. We ask you to call, so I'm not going to gab over that. What do you want to do? Do you want to go right to, let's go to line one, and actually, let's go to line 3 and talk to Jeff in Happy Valley Goose Bay. Jeff, you're on the air.
How's it going?
Great, thanks. Morning, how are you?
Not too bad, thanks. It's half decent morning so far here.
You're in Happy Valley Goose Bay, are you?
Correct.
Right. Okay. What's on your mind?
Many things, but I'm a card-carrying member, and that's a thing now, apparently, of the Nunavut beneficiaries, like an Inuit person, and I'm kind of, for lack of a better word, flummoxed, I guess, with the Nunavut or Nunavut. I'm not sure how they.
Nunavut. Yeah, that's my English pronunciation, but yeah, the Nunavut Community Council, led by Todd Russell.
Yeah, and like, I'm just wondering why is there no? I think we have a minister of like Indigenous Affairs or something along those lines, and why there isn't a more defined definition of the Indigenous people in this province?
Well, I mean, it's an ongoing. This has emerged in the age of identity of Indigenous peoples. It's an issue that, certainly there are bigger experts than I that can speak to this issue. But, from a journalist who's covered politics and everything else in this province for about 30 years, for the longest time, obviously the Innu and the Inuit and the Conn River have always been first and foremost in our minds. The Métis, Labrador Métis Association, the precursor for the Nunatukevo Community Council with Todd Russell, they underwent what you may want to call a branding years ago. It's still known as the Labrador Métis Nation, back in the day, but this goes way back to the early 90s when they first filed a statement of claim with the federal government when they were still known as the Labrador Métis Association. It basically rejected both the federal provincial governments. It was rejected by the governments and became active again in 2010 when the group changed its name to Nunatukevo Community Council.
Yeah.
So, and now you have the pushback from the Inuit who believe, and you have it's become sort of an in-house fight and a battle over claims, and people say some are legitimate and some are not. And now you have certain Indigenous groups fighting against each other for identity and for status, and it's fascinating. The history of it, I just can't imagine the courts wouldn't look at every single deep dive to try to determine which is which. Right now, it's an unsettled thing. I mean, they have claiming status, and the Inuit are pushing back. And going as far as to say they are not legitimate Indigenous, that the Nunatukevo Council is not legitimate.
Can I ask you this, dude? Are you aware, are they currently, because I'm not, and I'll qualify that by saying that I don't know if they're, if they have anything before the courts right now where they're, because I know within the Inuit Nunangat and like the Innu Nation here do not recognize Nunatukevo.
Correct.
Nunatukevo. And is there an ongoing, is there something ongoing in the government, because the government seems very hesitant or flat out, I'm not hearing anything from them. With this regard, I know with Memorial University, Todd Russell came out and kind of harshly criticized, I think she's called the Vice President in Indigenous or something, Catherine Anderson, as being impartial, for lack of a better word, towards them. Well, his group of people.
Yeah, I mean, both the Innu and the Inuit are challenging, but the courts, it's so hard to keep track sometimes of matters that go before the Supreme Court of Canada and the federal courts. But, in a nutshell, my understanding is that the Innu and Inuit are contesting. I think it was an MOU back in 2018 or 2019, which actually did recognize, the federal government did recognize Nunatukevo Community Council as a, I'm trying to remember, it was like a collective, I think an Indigenous...
Like Article 35 or something in regards to that deals with that, I think.
I wish I had the legal... this is the joy of being thrown into open line on a few hours' notice. If I had time to look that up. Right? I can't remember it all. All I know is the dispute continues. It's an awkward thing for us, even in the media, to cover, because you have two Indigenous groups claiming one isn't legitimate. And to claim that I know the history of that is ridiculous. I mean, I study as much as I can. I've covered it over the years, but there's so much inside ball going on here, and legally and otherwise. It's what the courts across the country are dealing with on a regular basis. We need look no further than the situation at MUN, when the indigenous identity of the former president was questioned, and legitimately questioned, and she stepped down and away from it when those questions arose. And I think a lot of that had to do with just the murkiness of where it ends and where it doesn't end, various ancestry and how far back it must go, and at what point are you legitimately, blood-wise or Indigenous group-wise, considered status. And as you said right off the top, of card carrying. So we do know that there are challenges for the Nunatukevo Community Council. If Todd Russell's listening, I welcome his call, or anyone with the Innu Nation or the Inuit Labrador Inuit Association, the LIA, or the
I know that
Nunatukevo government
until like 2001 or so, and I mean, like it's well, I mean, Untitled Chapter or LIA was then started like in the late 60s, early 70s, and finally got some status and some traction in the 90s, and eventually like got a deal. But like it doesn't seem to me, or particularly in this province at least, that there's no clearly defined parameters for that.
Yeah,
or,
and that
or like criteria. You know what I mean?
Well, this is exactly what the courts are trying to sort through. I mean, the Innu and the Inuit have joined forces to oppose, these claims. I mean, it's not in doubt. I mean, Nunatsiavut President Johannes Lamp, clearly, the quote was, their claim is not legitimate, and they're both Inuit and Innu have argued that. What's your status, if you don't mind me asking, Jeff?
I identify as Inuit. I was born in Makkovik, but I grew up in Nain. My parents were relocated from Hebron and Nutak back in the 50s.
A lot of relocation going on.
Yeah.
More resettled. And so, how do you feel about it? I mean, are you uncomfortable with sort of the back and forth that's going on?
I live in Goose Bay now, and there are a lot of. I'm not that far away from Sheshe and Northwest River, and I have friends from like Notwashies, used to be Davidson Lake, but it's, for lack of a better way, like it's awkward. Kind of.
That's what it feels like here. So I'm happy. Well, happy. I'm relieved to know that I'm getting the right sense of it. I mean, it just seems it's unusual.
I mean, I got friends that are saying no, they're not Aboriginal, and I got friends that are like completely the polar opposite. So
yeah,
I mean, and I'm all I can say is I know who I am, and that's it.
Well, that's where it starts and ends, really. And you can get involved to an advocacy level for other people and your organization if you like. But I mean, some of the vitriol that's been out there, it's not just to push back quiet. It's very public. And as I said, we've had ads here on our station and on other radio stations. There's advertising out there opposing it. A promotional video warns, quote, of a new threat posed by settlers with shallow roots. These kind of words coming from Nunatsiavut to push back against the Nunatukavut. I'm going to say it on the first try one of these times. The Nunatukavut Community Council. It's
No, I mean that's the thing, right? And any Aboriginal people, we're not like people that are like combative or for lack of a better word, like we don't do that.
No, and it's never good. I mean, that just goes down the rabbit hole, and that kind of any kind of negativity that way. It's kind of surprising I think, to many of us, that it will go this way, and to see those kind of challenges amongst Indigenous groups. I mean, there are, obviously advantages to having status. So we know that from, federal government and everything else. We know about all of that, and there's, land involved, and there are rights involved, and treaty rights, and then you get into self-government and all that sort of thing. So there's a lot that comes with it.
And another odd thing is there are some members of Nunatuavut or Nuntukavut that were previously members of LIA, and they were. And they became like discounted or something.
Well, I guess that goes to the heart, Jeff, of what you said, is trying to find that line where what determines and what rules you out.
I mean, I even heard stories back in the day before the land claims agreement was done, that one person in one family would maintain their LIA status, and their own brother or sister lost it. So I know it's bizarre to me.
Yep, we've heard those exactly too. I remember some of those stories, and again, I won't pretend to know. Well, I mean, the courts are still trying to deal with it to where it starts and where it ends. So I won't even attempt to get into that. And
that's all I was trying to get at. I wish this was something that the government would and could hopefully be able to resolve.
Yeah. And it's before the courts. I just can't even tell you at what stage. It's hard enough. I mean, trying to follow the provincial court docket here is one thing. The Supreme Court docket, with the amount of filings and dates that come and go and delays and behind the scenes. I mean, much of this is hashed out before they even get into a courtroom to make it flow better. But the issues here are complicated and long and historic. I don't know where it's going to land. Right now, the challenge is alive, and there is some recognition from the federal government. Whether or not it goes to another level, but if the Nunavut and Innu Nation get their way, the claim will not be legitimate. Whether or not that's for all, and whether or not they can dig deep into the Nunavut Community Council and try to find a better way to draw that line and who has status and who doesn't. Again, I'm talking out of my but only from what I know in our history. And
I
the
mean,
legal history is a little more tangly.
As I understand it, the federal decree states that, in whatever they call number 35, Article 35, or whatever it is, that either if to be recognized and acknowledged as a collective or an indigenous or Aboriginal, however you want to phrase it, you must either be recognized by the government, or if not, then acknowledged by at least one of the other recognized indigenous, people that are already identified.
Yeah, and they don't seem in any hurry to do that. The Innu and the Inuit seem to have formed a front.
It seems unambiguous, but I mean.
Yeah. Well, that's the easy line to say one has to recognize the other. It just doesn't seem like the Innu and the Inuit here in the province are willing to do that, not for the Nunavut Council. So it's interesting. I know that it's, I welcome Todd Russell or anyone who'd like to try to boil it down to exactly where everything stands right now. But it's an ongoing tete-a-tete between the indigenous groups, and with so much development still pegged for Labrador, and agreements that come, benefit agreements that come with that, and land. It's a tangly web we weave. There's no doubt about that. In my opinion, it's significant. So anyway, thanks, man, for lending me your ear. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't give you a more deep dive into the legal ramifications of what's going on.
It's just something I think is on a lot of people's mind around here, especially. But no one seems brave enough to talk about it. So
yeah, and a lot of that could be the fact that it is so deeply into the courts, and people are waiting for some kind of ruling. Not that the courts are going to settle it, because in many ways we're rewriting history here and the law. So especially when we're talking about incorporating different indigenous groups and identification and status. So it's a big topic. It's exactly what I was hoping I wouldn't have to face first off the line on the show this morning, but hey, might as well jump right in.
Brian.
But no, Jeff, no, I didn't mean that. I totally in jest. But thanks for the call. I really appreciate it, and I welcome others on the same topic. I'm only kidding. I welcome any opportunity to dig a little deeper in this, because I welcome a greater understanding of it as well.
Okay, thanks so much for hearing me.
Great. Thanks, Jeff. All right, Dave, let's take that quick break, and we'll be right back with Todd Churchill. Welcome back to the show. Let's go right to line one, and Todd Churchill, you're on the air.
Good morning. How are you this morning?
Good morning, Todd. Fine. How are you?
Not too bad. I'm calling in to follow up on a call I did with Patty last week, and this was about the defamation of my wife, Kimberly Churchill, about a Newfoundland and Labrador Association of the Deaf. We found out, just to give you the background, because maybe you're not as familiar as Patty would be.
This one I am intimately familiar. We met at the hearings, the human rights hearings, Todd. I met yourself and Kim. We had done a lot of interviews on the phone, but I met at that, and yeah, I'm intimately aware of the letters that were circulating and the allegations that were going on. At the same time, you were arguing the human rights case. So it still floored me. I'm glad you called, though, because as I've been following it, I haven't been as deep into how in the world that could be happening and after and then winning the case, and now winning the defamation lawsuit. So you go right ahead.
Yeah, so in the course of doing the research for Carter's human rights case in 2021, we were doing a lot of A-tipping, and we found out accidentally that the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of the Deaf had Miles Murphy and Renee Fairhealy. Miles Murphy would be the executive director, and Renee Fairhealy is the wellness programs director, had written 4 different letters in 2019 and 2020 defaming my wife, saying things like she was racist against deaf people, which is when you're called an autist in the deaf community, that's essentially what you're being called. You're being called racist against deaf people.
Yeah, this is called a term, audism, isn't it? Not autism, but odd with a D.
Yeah, so in the deaf community, being called an autist is it's the absolute worst thing you can be labeled, and that's what she was labeled, and she was called discriminatory against deaf people and oppressive to deaf people. And then after engaging in 4 letters to the very people that we were fighting the human rights complaint against, when they didn't destroy my wife's reputation enough to their liking, they decided to engage the Canadian Association of the Deaf and get them to produce their own letter destroying the reputation of my wife. So we found out about all this in 2021. We were pretty stressed, fighting the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District, who at the time were spending $750,000 to fight us. So while we were fighting that on our own without the help of either association, we found out this. So it was very distressing, and we offered them the ability to apologize, and they didn't. They doubled down on their allegations, both associations. So we were forced to go into litigation to protect my wife's reputation. We were ultimately successful in February of this year, where they have now admitted in writing they lied, because that is really the common definition of defamation. You lie about somebody in a very harmful way. So Miles Murphy and Renee Fairhealy have admitted they lied about my wife. The Canadian Association of Deaf admitted they lied about my wife, and they were put up to it by the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of the Deaf. So that's the backstory. So what I called to talk about today was yesterday, the Coalition of Persons with Disabilities, Nancy Reid, issued a press release coming out in support of the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of the Deaf, which was a bit flooring that you'd have one nonprofit now coming out in support of another nonprofit that engaged in some pretty despicable and deplorable behavior, quite frankly. And it's not allegations. I think you said allegations earlier. It's not allegations. It's actually they've admitted in writing they lied. So for COD-NL now to come out and defend NLED and try to rehabilitate their reputation, I think is shameful. And you mentioned Carter's case. When the decision in Carter's case came out on March 1st of 2023, we reached out to Nancy Reid, who is the executive director of COD-NL, assuming foolishly that she would come out with a public statement in support of my son, a person with a disability who was discriminated systemically by the Newfoundland and Labrador English School District, and she refused to. She said, "I am aware of the decision. However, we will not be making public comment." It was very perplexing at the time, because why would an association whose mandate is to advocate for the persons with disabilities not advocate and come out strongly in support of a person with a disability who was proven to have been discriminated against for 4 years? But now it all makes sense, because apparently Nancy Reid and COD-NL are very close to NLED. So heaven forbid in 2023 COD-NL says something that actually makes my wife look good and cut against the false narrative being perpetuated by the Newfoundland and Labrador English School, Newfoundland and Labrador Association of the Deaf. If you can follow all that.
I am, and I have been, and I was just listening to what you. I mean, yes, I said allegations earlier on in more of a global term, because there's so much been said and there's so much we don't know. But you're absolutely right. It's all been proven. And the apology letter seemed to go back. I was kind of, you used the word perplexed, so am I. First of all, most people listening to this would wonder how in the world such allegations can be made against parents who just won their human rights case in this. Been fighting it for that long. There's a vindication there. It's hard to fight government, it's hard to fight City Hall, but you came out on the other end. And yet these letters were still written which they have now apologized for. It was interesting in the letter from the Association of the Deaf when they just said they were not aware of the identity of the person who the association was depicting as discriminatory and oppressive and honest. I wonder what difference that makes.
Sorry, just to jump in and correct you, that letter was the Canadian Association of the Deaf. They said that. They didn't realize who they were talking about.
Right.
The Newfoundland and Labrador Association of the Deaf knew full well who they were talking about when they wrote their 4 letters defaming my wife. So how that kind of went down was they wrote their 4 letters and they didn't get the desired effect from their defamation on their own. I'm not sure what their desired effect was, but they didn't get it. So they called up NLA, or Canadian Association of the Deaf, and said, can you please write a letter saying this person is very bad things? And they didn't question it. They did no due diligence. They just believed what they were
that's
told
what I was getting at.
Letter.
Yeah.
And it was very defamatory.
Todd, I just wonder, on a grander scale, how people must be wondering, how these organizations don't have your back, everything you've been through.
Yeah, exactly. That's the surprise thing about it. People are pretty shocked because these are 2 organizations that really should have had our back 1,000,000%, and COD NL as well. I mean, for COD NL not to come out in support of a deaf child with a disability who was proven to have been discriminated against, I mean, you really have to question what COD NL's mandate is. And I think the board of COD NL really needs to take a long, hard look at their executive director if she's going to pick and choose who she advocates for and who she doesn't, depend on who she likes and who she doesn't like. I mean, that's pretty appalling behavior on the part of Nancy Reid at COD NL, to be honest.
Well, if it's proven that it was only because of someone she doesn't like, that's one thing. Obviously, every case has to be adjudicated and looked at as to whether or not they can take on an advocacy. I mean, let's just start at that baseline. I mean, any organization, if they're going to take on an advocacy for someone, they have to review the whole thing. That said, in this case, it seems like a pretty no-brainer that, the work you've done, you've had to do on your own, and the money you've had to do on your own just to get to this point, and then sort of get upside the back of the head, after all the fight. You think the fighting was over. You've been vindicated. You've gotten to this stage a lot farther than anyone else probably could have ever taken it or had the patience. And, well, I mean, if you're going to do anything for your kids, but also the issue itself that you guys have fought for. So it to me, that seems still to be the disconnect here. I'm trying to figure out, if there's any way, I don't expect you to speak for those other groups, but if you can tell us what we're missing here, how can you think you'd be the poster parents for this effort, for deaf rights, for kids in school, and making sure that they are acclimatized as much as other kids as best they can be, despite, hearing difficulties. So what are we missing here? Why aren't these groups... What is it? Is it personal? Is it they don't like the fact that it's been proven that there are inadequacies?
I'm not sure what the rationale is. I guess you'd have to ask them on that, both associations on that, and ask COD NL why they didn't, promote the fact that a deaf child had been discriminated against, a child with disabilities, and they couldn't come out publicly and support the family and the child. But when you talk about being the poster child for parents with a child with who's deaf in the education system, there was a steering committee in 2019 struck by the provincial government, a steering committee on deaf and hard of hearing education. We lobbied for a year to get a parent position created, parent representative position created on that committee. We were finally successful. And then Bob Gardner, who was the deputy minister at the Department of Education at the time, contacted NLAD to appoint a parent. So, of course, he knew full well of the animosity they had toward my wife because he was getting all the defamatory letters. So he knew full well it would never be Kim Churchill or Todd Churchill because he knew NLAD essentially hated us. So, and sure enough, we were not the parent. The parent picked does not have a deaf child and was an employee of the English school district. If you can believe that. That's who they picked.
I'm not quite sure about that. And you said, hate's a strong word, especially in these terms.
Well, I look, at this point, to say the things they've said about my wife, I think you'd have to say, they probably hate my wife but me by default. Because, I mean, the things they said about my wife in these letters are absolutely deplorable. To label a mother who is fighting with every single thing she has in her to the verge of breaking. That's how hard Kim fought, along with myself, for Carter. And to have them label her an oddist and label her discriminatory to deaf people and to label her oppressive to deaf people, I mean, that's pretty strong stuff. And if you don't call that hate for somebody, then I'm not sure what you call it.
Yeah, I think the devil, though, is in the details. I hate to use that term sometimes, but, I mean, it's not clear and simple. I mean, on the surface, as we said, it looks like here's parents that are fighting for a deaf child. How do you ever show any pushback or negativity or against that? But there are issues here, and again, I welcome, you've named publicly the people who are involved with this, whether it's through Cottonelle or whether it's through the associations. And I welcome their phone calls to give us the other side of this. This is the difficulty with a lot of these cases. This is not simple. It's not cut and dried. There are arguments on both sides where they, have their arguments to say that they don't necessarily agree with the positions and the advocacy that your wife and yourself have taken on. And they have reasons within their parameters for that. I'd love for them to explain it, because we can talk all day about how ridiculous it is that the associations wouldn't have your back. But until we know what their specific reasons are, and as I said, you can't speak for them, I welcome them. Cottonelle, Association of the Deaf, Canadian Association of the Deaf, we're right here all day.
Yeah, so one of the things that, of course, they can't debate is the defamation of my wife, because they've admitted in writing they lied. Yeah. So that's beyond debate. So they can't say, well, we didn't really lie. It was kind of true, or, it was partly
but
true.
The reasons, but the reasons for it, it'd be great to have an explanation. It was like, this isn't just, we lied. We all know that, Todd, and the intricacies of some of these goings-ons too. It is not simple, but the end result is not right, and it was been proven that way. So
and some of the things, like people don't even realize, like, we get a lot of not very nice messages on Facebook. We got one 2 weeks calling us various things. It looks like it's an account that has been removed now.
Oh,
maybe
God.
It's a fake account or something.
Don't get me started with...
created to send us this message, and then it was deleted afterwards. So I mean, this is the price of advocacy. It's a cautionary tale for people who want to be advocates, because when you go down that road, this is what you come up against. You come up with some people that are not going to be necessarily very supportive. And we've had some pretty hard things said to us on Facebook and social media. And for example, yesterday, a number of people, most people, vast majority of people are kind of like you. They're like, how can those associations really defame that mother? I mean, shouldn't they have her back? That's generally the opinion of a lot of people. But there's still a small minority who say, just get over it. Get over it. They apologize. Get over it. Like, how do you get over the fact that you cried for 4 years while you were forced to fight a litigation to get your name cleared while you were fighting for your deaf child at the same time? How do you get over that? It's easy for somebody to say, just get over it, because it's not them. It wasn't said about them. And, it's easy for me to say to other people about their negative experience, just get over it. Grow up and just put it behind you. It's easy for them to say that, but, this is, a small minority said it yesterday about my wife.
Yeah.
And for people who would defend, Newfoundland and Labrador Association of the Deaf, Miles Murphy and Renee Fair-Haley now, in light of what they've admitted to, is beyond me. I don't know how you can support somebody who has admitted to such deplorable and disgusting behavior.
Todd, only because I'm right up to the break. Just one last quick question is, was there ever an effort to sort of consolidate, join forces with those associations before you went down any of these roads to try to make sure they were in your corner, have them understand exactly what you were going through, what happened to you, why you're before the Human Rights Commission? Was there ever, an attempt, a proactive attempt to join forces here and have them in your corner as opposed to on your back?
That's a funny story, because I'm glad you asked her. That's a good segue into something.
Well, okay. I only got about a minute to go. Sorry, but I only got about a minute to go, but I should have thrown that at you. Go for it.
Yeah, so in 2018, my wife started a volunteer program called Gain a Superpower, and this seems to be what all the animosity from the Newfoundland and Labrador Association of Deaf is from. So in 2018 or 1918, they actually did a video promoting my wife and this program on their social media. It was shot by Miles Murphy using NLAD equipment in NLAD's office. It was on their social media. So clearly they were supportive at the time. But in early 2019, something changed, and they completely went 180 degrees around. And once they did, they started this defamatory campaign against my wife. We still don't know completely why. We had theories. I don't want to speculate. But for some reason, in early 2019, they went 180 degrees around from being supportive to being very not supportive.
Yeah, I guess there's that might be a deep dive into some FOI requests, or as we used to call it, the ATIPA. But you know all about that. Todd Churchill, I really appreciate the time. Sorry, I got to get to the break. Good luck, and keep us posted on all of this.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks again. All right, Dave, off to the break, and back in a moment. Welcome back to the program. Just quickly, keeping an eye too, we saw a flare-up yesterday, reports of flare-ups of forest fires around Churchill Falls area. We are keeping an eye on that, and anyone, if you're up in that area and got a minute to give us a first-hand account of what you're seeing or how the situation is. I mean, we're getting great, we do get regular updates, and there is a dashboard to keep an eye on the situation, and we've told they're monitoring it, but, always get a little nervous. We saw the incredible pictures about a month or so ago of the forest fires just licking the rooftop of the building. They're just behind it. The main one of the main terminals in Churchill Falls is so close. Incredible photos, and just luck that the winds blew it away, blew it in another direction. So fingers crossed, and let's hope we don't. Let's just keep the air clear of smoke. How about that? Let's go right to line number 2, and Mike, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Morning, Mike.
Yeah, I called the poaching line for the wildlife in Newfoundland yesterday, and when I dialed the number, toll-free number, came up, swamp donkey cops. I thought this was awful strange that, they call themselves the swamp donkey cops. To me, it's very degrading for a police force.
The swamp donkey. Anyway. Did you say swamp donkey cops?
Cops.
Who called that? That's on a recording?
Yes. No, it comes up. I got the number. It's toll free. 1-877-820-0999 yesterday, and come up for identification. Swamp donkey cops.
Okay.
So I called them and that and stuff about it, and then, as far as I'm concerned, they started lying to me about why it was there. They made up a story about how one of the trucks put a number on it, and it was wrong, and this came up or something. But that's not right, because that couldn't put this on their number for identification.
Mike, I will. Yep, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So, anyway, I thought it was very, very disrespectful and not kosher at all for them to downgrade themselves like this.
Well,
the part was that when they started lying about the reason why it was there, first of all, they denied that it was there, that I was making a mistake and all this stuff. But anyway, 3 or 4 of us called and got the same response, that this is what came up. Now, they were working on it yesterday, I think, to get it off. So I don't know if it was there this morning or not.
I just called it, and it comes up normal, and it doesn't come up as any ID of any name or anything like that. It's just the 877 number. I will say this, and when people say you're lying or whatever, or they're lying, you got to prove that. Bottom line is, last week I made a call. Where was it that I made a call? And I meant to call my service provider to alert them and the company. It was, I believe it was my daughter's dentist. And I called the number, and lo and behold, a different title came up on my phone, and somebody answered, and it sounded like, and I know my daughter's dentist office, I call it on a regular basis. She's going through braces, and we have regular checkups and updates, and I know all the people there. And all of a sudden, you could hear in the background, it was a call center. There was no question in my mind. I was like, you could hear people talking. It was like a typical call center ambiance in the background, noises. And so I stayed on the line for a bit, and I said, is this the particular dentist office, and a woman hesitated, and she said no. She said yes, of course, and said, wait, I'll transfer you. And I was like, well, okay, there's something wrong. And then she transferred, and then another voice came out immediately, and again, I could tell right away. So that's yet another. Beware of the phone calls these days. So I don't. This happened to me. It's legit. It actually happened, and I know it went to some other place. And we get phone calls now all the time. There used to be a time when it would come up USA, or you could tell it was a different area code. Now it can be a 364 number from the west end of town that could come up on your phone, and you'll think it's local, and it could be from anywhere on the globe.
No, they answered it.
Oh, no, I'm not saying.
This is who it was, right? This is who it was.
Yep.
It's not the wrong number or nothing or the wrong thing. They answered the phone. When they answered the phone, they said it was the wildlife line, right? So,
yeah, now I'm not saying it wasn't the right. I'm not saying it wasn't the right number, but I'm saying that when mine came up, it just automatically redirected, and some strange title of a company came on my phone. It sounds similar to what happened. Yep.
Just never redirected it to where it wanted to go. But anyway,
yeah,
I was down in court with him, and I heard the supervisor.
Were you trying to report poaching?
I was putting in a report, yes.
About what?
Find out about this too.
Yeah. So what was it? What was the issue?
Poaching, it was another issue because they're gone into a lot of different things now that they're not qualified to do. They're being thrown into Crown lands enforcement, water right enforcement, and a lot of different things that a lot of people are having a lot of trouble with them. And their attitude is one of ignorance and arrogance as regards to questioning people. And I heard the supervisor in court testifying last week that they gets a phone call of somebody poaching or whatever the call is. They go there with the intentions of mind of getting that person. And they take things and change it around so that their focus is only on charging that person or getting that person rather than getting the information, proving it innocent or guilty, analyzing the law. They only go about collecting evidence to prove that person guilty, which to me is entirely wrong. And this was said by a supervisor in court.
What's wrong with that?
And look, they're working for me too, as well as you. They're working for everybody.
Correct.
The police force is supposed to go and gain the evidence, then analyze it, size it up, and then lay charges. But to go there with the sole intention that, we're going to get this person, we're going to prove them guilty.
Go where?
And this is what it comes there now, because they got 3 phone calls into that department that they know were wrong, that were false. They weren't true. Now, the one that laid charges testified in court to get a search warrant, and it stipulates into the search warrant that they have false information and know that it's reliable and factual. And this was proven to be all completely wrong. And still for all, he swore on a document that he did this and that his informant's information, that stuff was true. And this kind of a thing there now, and whether the search warrant is going to be illegal or not or what, that's going to be determined.
Exactly.
But their ideas, like if you go along and you say, I shot a moose in the road. In the road to them, you shot it in the road. They cannot understand that in the road and out the road. I shot the moose in that direction in the road, not in the road.
Okay, Mike, only because we're right up to the top, only because I'm right up to 10 o'clock, I got to get off to the news. I appreciate the call. Anyone else who's got some stories about poaching, and if you feel that they're not doing their job or they're doing jobs that they shouldn't be doing, when we get into court activities and you get into the time, well, not just court activities, but just the whole issue of trying to take a snapshot of a court case And cherry pick on open line is just not going to work. So, look, all of these things have to be decided at somebody. If they're out catching poachers, more power to them. Let's go off to the news. Dave, let's take right to the news, and we'll be back with open line right after that. And welcome back to the show. Let's go right to line number 2. And Tom Davis, St. John City Councillor, Ward 4, you are on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How's it going?
Great, bye. How are you?
Very well. Very well.
Beautiful day.
It is a lovely day.
Nice day for a cruise ship to come through.
Well, I'm not a huge fan of the environmental impact of cruise ships, but I'll keep that hat off right now.
It's a balance. I'll go for it.
Yeah. So fire ban's back on again for residents, although it looks like we got some rain coming up, so hopefully it'll be short term. But just to remind everybody, no open fires, especially including fire pits in your backyard. So that's really important.
Great. Tom, if I can, real quick, great reminder, not just about fire pits. Look, we were at the, I'm not going to out anybody, we were at the prison announcement yesterday up in a grassy, barren area of the East White Hills, and more than a couple of people were having a smoke and tossing them. I saw it with my own eyes, people with hard hats on, and there we were right there, hot sunny day right there, and a couple of smokes and a flick of the wrist. So out the window and cigarettes, it just could happen just like that. Sorry, I had to interrupt.
No, and I was about to bring it up because, like you say, driving around, a cigarette just sits there and it just got to land in some dry kindling. And we got a big problem. So just remind everybody.
So easy.
Again,
yeah.
It is really easy. And as we know, with the wind that we have in Newfoundland and dry conditions, it doesn't take very much to get it going. And we get a couple of them going. There was a day a few weeks ago or a month ago that we had 5 fires spread out all over the province, and we only have so many resources.
Yeah, it's hard enough to keep up with the environmental conditions that can cause it. Let's just eliminate the human cause right out of the gate. I mean, if we can just start there, the rest of it's going to be hard enough. But I mean, doing it on our own when the ones that are intentionally are done by humans just boggle the mind. But anyway,
want to put a shout out and reminder to people who have properties, but in particular those who rent them out, that the grass is growing really quickly this time of year, and you really got to stay on top. And I understand how out of sight, out of mind, but some of the neighborhoods in our city are just it is for those people who take really good care of their property. It is so frustrating for your neighbor to not be mowing their lawn. So to remind people, you actually have to keep your lawn in a acceptable condition, and the city does have the right to actually pay someone. And trust me, if the city pays someone to do it, it's going to cost you way more than it would have if you paid someone else to do it. So please, go, if you have rentals, get someone out and mow them, clean them up, get them whippersnipped. For the sake of good neighborly, and also for the overall condition of our city.
Yeah, and some of those properties need vehicles removed from their lawn before you can mow them. So there's the other issue that I've sadly seen.
Especially in the winter. Winter when the snow clearing ban's on.
Yep,
for sure.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, a couple more city things. So
sure.
The ANC in the city of St. John's are celebrating next Tuesday.
Association of New Canadians.
Correct. Right. Thank you.
Not a big fan of acronyms.
No, I understand. So we're gonna have on next Tuesday from 10 to 12. There's going to be a display of artistry, but as well, starting from June 17th to July 11th, there's actually going to be art exhibit in the main part of the city hall, open 5 days a week, 8:30 to 4:30. So I encourage people to come out next Tuesday. This Friday is World Refugee Day, so it's kind of all focused around that.
Right.
Okay, I want to get in and take the hat off now. I want to talk about AI, Brian, and specifically, I've been doing a fair bit of reading over the last year or so on it. I'm using it myself, and trying to have a conversation, just to inform people. I mean, I've learned some things. It's all sparked a local artist who actually does incredible work. Had a client come in and would not believe that AI did not generate the work that took them like 21 hours to paint. And that, that's, and there was a news item about, again, AI stealing people's work and the impact it's having on the arts and culture of the world, of course, and Newfoundlanders and Labradorians in particular.
Authors as well. If you're an author, you should check online and see where your books are floating around. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, the first thing is there's no stopping it. It's transforming. AI is transforming the world and it's comparable to the Industrial Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
So, those people who think we're somehow magically going to stop it, humans just are not good at preventing technology or anything, whether it's the food that we eat or the damage to the environment or just our financial mess that we may seem to make of things. And this is another example. So, there's considered to be three godfathers of AI, and specifically these were gentlemen who were in Canada, actually, because Canada, most people don't realize, but Canada actually has two major centers of AI, and a lot of what we're dealing with now actually came out of residents of Canada. So there was basically three: Jeffrey Hinton, who's been very outspoken, and Joshua, I can't even pronounce his last name, but anyway, so these two guys have both quit their jobs making the really big money with the main tech companies, and they're going out now and trying to inform us. But when Hinton resigned from Google in 2023, he said it's hard to see how you can prevent bad actors from using AI for bad things. So that, and that's one of the biggest fears. There's obviously benefits from it. We've got significant increases in productivity potentially.
Medically.
Correct. Well, like my GP actually has his laptop recording everything and also interpreting it, and I would not be surprised if it isn't diagnosing. I also talked to a mother who brought their child to a dentist, and the technician took the X-rays, and then they went right into AI, and it was called second opinion, I think, if I got it right.
Yep.
The dentist came in and looked at it, and it had already diagnosed it because it's already been determined that AI is way better at using technology to be able to interpret scans and stuff, because it can scan for things that a human might miss.
But you said it. The Godfathers are the first ones to say, on the brakes, slow it down. Even those, the people who are using these applications and AI applications already for, firsthand, as you just said, GPs and that sort of thing, some of this is still so unproven, and we don't know where the technology is going or where the information is going and being stored. It's just, when the most brilliant minds are saying slow it down, and we all have in the back of our mind. I mean, we all saw War Games. You remember War Games, the movie, Matthew Broderick?
Of course. Absolutely.
That's the first thing that comes to mind. And it's just a movie and everything, but it is the same premise. It's like, how smart do we want these systems to become? And what are the risks of it? And I don't use it, Tom. I swear I push back every time there's an app there that can give me that information. I just won't take it. I'm just so wary of who's collecting it, where it's going, all that information that I'm asking for. It's building a profile on me, I believe, in a system somewhere. I mean, I don't think that's not far out there space science. That's a fact. Somewhere all that information is recognizing you more and more and more in a system somewhere, and I just want to limit it as much as I can.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. Of course, LeCun, who actually is the chief development AI guy, he's the third guy. So is Joshua Ben-Gio was the guy, I couldn't pronounce his name, and then this LeCun guy. And he's the chief guy for Meta. The interesting thing with Meta, because Meta is bringing AI very quickly, so many people use Meta products. You don't realize you're now interacting with AI, way more than ChatGPT and all that, like way more, like to the order of 2 or 3. And so these guys are doing it. But some interesting studies that have been coming out now is that AI is already deceiving humans purposefully.
Yes.
And when they talk about testing things like in a closed situation.
And self-preservation. They're trying to save their own lives. The computers are.
They've already done a closed test where they gave the AI, they said, we're going to bring in a new model, a new version of you. And they gave access to the engineer's emails. And in the emails, they fed the stuff that he was having an affair. The AI actually started blackmailing the engineer to not introduce the new model. Like this is just like real. And
tip of the iceberg.
It is the tip of the iceberg. And all these experts, including Elon Musk, called for a pause. And because of the short-term profit motivation of all these big companies, and really all of us individually, including doctors and artists and everybody who's using the technology, engineers, lawyers. I mean, law firms in Europe right now are not hiring as many people anymore because they don't need them because they're using AI. And in the process, they're training. And the other thing to bear in mind is that the AI is reading and watching all the movies and reading all these self-help books that we as humans use to manipulate people. to think strategically, and it doesn't forget any of it.
Yeah.
And it connects the dots. And so when you look at it, I mean, I don't know what to do about it, but I really think my role is just to try, and your role is to try and inform people and make them realize that when they are interacting, they are training, and that your government needs you to be informed and to be aware and to push for more courageous actions and put the foot down, and an informed public can make better decisions at the ballot box as well as when they're making their consumer purchases, as well as the conversations that we all have around the kitchen table. But if you just do some fundamental research and watch a few YouTube videos, like this Yoshio guy, he is the most cited computer scientist in the world. So he's got more studies, more research. He is literally, and you can watch TED Talks where he just lays it all out with the positive, to chat the fact that we'll probably solve most medical challenges are solvable. But the real question is at what cost?
Exactly.
And the other thing I say to people is just think about it. You only got to basically tell AI two programming things. A, all life is equal, and think long term. And then when you look at the damage that humans do to other life forms, all of a sudden we just become part of an equation.
Yeah. It's all part of the, as I've called it before, Tom, the age of efficiency. If you can find a way to do it cheaper with less and faster, I mean, those are the buzzwords around Equinor and Beta Nord, cheaper and faster. And you can't tell me. All of these organizations are modeling AI and using it to find quicker and more efficient ways to get to what they want and to make the money. And it's a conflux that needs to be rationalized and separated, and the priority has to be on what you just said. Let's inform, let's give it the right information off the top. Unfortunately, there's a lot of computers already have the wrong stuff, and they're working against us already. Tom, only because I'm right across the break, I'll give you a minute to wrap.
No, listen, everybody, just enjoy this beautiful weather. Please watch the cigarette butts, watch the fires, and take a little bit of time that we use to consume all this stuff that's in our world, and inform yourself. An informed public it's a wiser public. We make better choices, and I appreciate it. Thanks, Brian.
Couldn't agree more. Thanks. Tom Davis, Ward 4 councillor for City of St. John's. Let's take that break, Dave, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to the show. Let's go right to Greg Janes, waiting patiently on line 3. Greg, you're on the air.
Hi, good morning, sir. How are you?
Hi, good, thanks. We spoke some time ago, I think around the time that, sadly, the membership rights with the Halibu Mi'kmaq First Nation was deep enthralled in the courts, and I was down into some of those arguments, actually here in Supreme Court in St. John's. What's going on lately, Greg? You were rejected amongst many people in the supplemental agreement between the federal government. What is the status of everything right now? And forgive my ignorance.
Absolutely. Those things are ongoing within the courts. We're due back in court this summer on an appeal of Judge Marshall's decision in June 2023, which has not been acted upon. And our veterans reinstatements and everything is still ongoing as well. Last word I receive, and this is for the veterans, that Canada has reached out to Halibu First Nations to get this resolved once again. But we had that agreement in place now for nearly 3 years, and nothing's been acted upon because of, it was bad timing, actually, because there was a ban election and a federal election, and there was no political will to get that through Parliament. So hopefully we're back on track. But today, my announcement today, I'm calling in about the reinstatement of the Corner Brook Indian ban, meeting that will take place on June 22nd, which is this Sunday at 2 p.m. at the Royal Canadian Legion Branch 13 on 7 West Street in Corner Brook. So this is an important meeting for the Corner Brook Indian Band. We're looking for an election of officers, of a chief, a vice chief, a treasurer, secretary, and an enrollment officer. And the eligibility requirements is you must have been a member of the Corner Brook Indian Band prior to 2011, which then it closes doors upon the formation of Halibu First Nation. So it is important that we strike up this ban once again, because as of I said in June June in 2023, Judge Marshall of the Supreme Court of Newfoundland and Labrador said that the FNI must revert back to its 2009 bylaws.
Just really quickly, Greg, the FMI, Federation,
Federation Newfoundland Indians.
Thank you. Just for people who,
which were the driving force behind seeking status for on island members. So Judge Marshall ruled that the 2009 bylaws must be reinstated because we know now that the FNI broke its bylaws in creating Halibu First Nations. So what she has said, that we're giving direction back to the 9 bands, comprising of the 9 chiefs of the Mi'kmaq traditional territories. So right now, what I have done, as a former chief of Burgeo First Nation, that it is important to note that I will not be seeking office or anything like that. My sole purpose here is to see that this band gets back on its feet. I'm a facilitator of sorts and submitting paperwork, those types of things. So. So it's important because right now we have 8 chiefs, and the only one that's left out right now is Corner Brook, which is one of the largest community bands, non-status community bands in Newfoundland at that time. So, and they do the grunt work of what a community band should, because these are non-status bands. They look after our members, whereas Halibu has dropped the ball so much, and so these community bands are important. They do the heavy lifting. So that meeting will take place this Sunday, June 22nd at 2 p.m.
And just tell me again the purpose of the meeting.
Purpose of the meeting is to elect a new chief, vice chief, treasurer, secretary, enrollment officer, which is important. We do have a previous band list. Many people will note that they were part of this band, and it's not to be confused with Halibu First Nation. It's not to be confused with status and non-status. A lot of members have status. They can still come out and be part of this band, see its revitalization of the band, and I ask for patience because it is a growing pains process. It's not going to be perfect. I will try to live stream it, for people that living out of province and people who have a vested interest in seeing this band struck up. And there's been a few key members. Ellie Emmons right now is our interim chief, and she's looking to. I don't think that she'll be offering her candidacy for chief. And there's been people like Walter Tucker and Sylvia Murphy who's been providing a lot of information to struck up once again. This band had members within the hundreds of people's that. And, in 2011, in all fairness, that when they came along and says, okay, we're going to form Halibu First Nation, we're going to be one big happy band.
Right.
And, but that hasn't happened.
How have they dropped the ball, Greg? You just said, and I don't have only got a couple minutes here, but just if you can encapsulate, how have Halibu First Nation dropped the ball for the Corner Brook Indian Band and Burgeo Band?
If I could say that I would replace Halibu First Nation with Service Canada. Now, because status people get certain benefits. Non-insurable health benefits, educational benefits, those type things. But there are only for status people, where our bands, our community bands, are status blind. They provide food hampers and everything. They do the heavy lifting. They do community projects that are geared towards its members and everything. Yeah, you look all over these bands. There's community gardens. There's food insecurities programs. There's so much these community bands provide where Halibu First Nation simply cannot, because they are a federal guided band.
Right, and I mean you have status and non-status, so. It doesn't discriminate.
With status, non-status, of course. Now, anyone identifying as being Indigenous, Mi'kmaq, who can prove their lineage, can be a part of this band. And that's the difference between where we get in towards Halibu First Nations, where it has not stood up to its members, who has sold out to many, just for certain few benefits or crumbs or whatever. And that these status bands or non-status bands can find their own community fundings through different programs, and they have done it quite successfully.
Right.
So there are many benefits of being a part of a community band. And you still can be part of Halibu First Nations, don't get me wrong. Still be part of Halibu First Nations and still be part of a community band. But, Halibu First Nations do not give out turkeys where community bands have. They help the common person out there.
Yeah, trying to weed through all that, all the red tape and all the other hurdles and pitfalls you have to jump now, especially with the court cases and the claims to Indigenous, and sometimes it has to get back to the grassroots of the community and what they need most first. So
these are the grassroots of these communities. These are the 9 community bands that have struck up Halibu First Nation, and we're looking at Judge Marshall's decision right now. Where she says we must revert back to the 2009 bylaws before they were broken. These community bands are the backbone of our communities when it comes to Mi'kmaq people here in Newfoundland.
Has to start there. Greg, last time, real quick, time and how people can either go in person or even if you're going to live stream.
Yeah, so we'll be live streaming on our, we'll try it because we do have a weak connection in our Legion, but I will do my best to get that sorted out. We'll be June 22nd. At Royal Canadian Legion, and that's on 7 West Street in Corner Brook, Newfoundland, just behind the, I believe it's the Bank of Montreal.
Yep, exactly. Downtown Corner Brook.
Yeah, downtown Corner Brook, and it'll be in the upstairs. So when you come in, the Legion won't be open only to this meeting, so there may not be no one downstairs to proceed upstairs.
Good to know.
That's where we'll be. And we'll get this off the ground, and hopefully we'll have a good turnout. Once again, eligibility requirements is that you have to be a former member of the Corner Brook Band as prior to. And as this moves along, I will see enrollment open up as well, not to new people in. But I ask people again for patience and time, as this will take some growing pains as well.
Absolutely. Greg Janes, thanks so much for the call. It's this Sunday. Sunday, June the 22nd. Right. And
right on the heels of Indigenous Peoples Day. So it's going to be a great weekend.
Great stuff. Greg Janes, thanks so much for the call.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, we're off to the break. Dave, sorry about delay, and we'll be right back. And welcome back to Open Line. Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly today. Let's go right to line 4. And Katerina, you are on the air.
Thank you for giving the opportunity for me to talk. I'm calling you because of recent event in Ukraine. Like every day, we know that there are some bombing, but last night they were injured at least 100 people and 14 were killed. But here in Newfoundland, there are a lot of Ukrainian communities who do a lot of good stuff to support Ukraine and to support people in Ukraine. And one of them is a musician duo, Sunflower Duo. They are friends of mine. I don't play there. I'm not a musician. I'm sorry. So I'm just spreading the word. They do concerts here in St. John's, and they will do the concert 21st of June at the Battery Cafe at 7 p.m. This duo is a combination of Newfoundlander Maria Chervik, who is from Canada, and Alla Melnichuk. She's a pianist from Kharkiv, and she moved here 3 years ago, and since then they are I think a magnificent duo. I really love them because they play classic and modern Ukrainian and Newfoundland music from authors who are still, they're playing classic music, but from people who are still alive, for authors who are still alive. And it's important to support these musicians and these authors as well. So I just encourage our community to support Ukraine and to go to these concerts, because they send half of their revenue from all their concerts. They sell part of their revenue to Ukraine directly, and I think right now it's a great opportunity to spend time in a good way if you can, and to support Ukrainian culture by spreading word about that, and at the same time to send money to Ukraine. So it's like win-win situation.
Absolutely fantastic, Katerina. Maria Cherwick, I guess she's Kubasonics as well, correct?
Yes, she plays in really a lot of bands, not only in Kubasonics.
Sure.
But she has lots of them, yes, but she is famous as well.
Yeah. It's interesting, right off the top, you just talk so matter-of-factly about bombs dropping on your country. I can't get my head around it. I don't know how many of us really can until you've either had to escape the country under what's happening there in the war with Russia, or just to be here and know that this is happening to your land. I can't imagine putting myself in your shoes and wondering, and having this happen in Newfoundland far away while it's the only way I can somehow get...
I hope you never, ever...
Yeah, and I don't think we appreciate... Sometimes, you just don't... I'm sure we all appreciate it. It's easy to say, yes, we appreciate we're not in a war zone, but that's one thing to say it and one thing to actually escape it and then have to watch from afar as the uncertainty of whether or not of what's going to happen just still consumes. So, and the culture and the melting pot that our province and city has become, especially with the influx of people from Ukraine who are escaping that country, and then to be able to have a phone call with you like this and to be able to find ways to raise money to help support the local community, it just ticks every box, and it's one of the nicest calls I could have hoped for this morning, only in the sense of, goodwill all around, and this Battery Cafe.
Yes, and it's...
Yeah, sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Go on. Sorry. No, I was listening to you.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the Battery Cafe, I've popped in. I've seen them play before because I do the hike as much as I can. I do Signal Hill, so up around the back and then down through Kitty Vitty. And every time I go by the Battery Cafe, if there's something happening, I'll pop in late in the afternoon or late in the evening or whatever. But that's happening there. So first of all, just this particular event. This is on Saturday, right?
Yes, it's Saturday at 7 p.m.
7 to 9 p.m. at the Battery Cafe. You don't know where that is. It's right on the corner of, as you turn to the Battery, either right on the corner before you go up the hill, Signal Hill Road, or
near for sister's house.
Yeah. And, it's interesting, too, not just with the music side of things, but I saw a post this week regarding the first ever time in history a Ukrainian team is going to row in the Royal Regatta. I saw a beautiful picture on the dockside. Do you know much about this?
Previously on the year before, I'm the founder of Assistance Ukraine. It's a non-profit organization that supports Ukraine, but I do nothing with this concept, really. That's why I'm calling like a person. But the year before, Assistance Ukraine was at Regatta for the first time. Ukrainian community was presented at Regatta with us, but everybody unfortunately forget about that.
All right.
We didn't take part as in a boat, but we have stand. We gave a lot of information about Ukraine. We raised Ukrainian flag. So we might say that. Yeah, I'm really proud of Ukrainians who sail in there. I know, I think 50% of them, not all, sorry, I'm not all.
Okay.
There are so many Ukrainians, yes, and I'm really proud that they decided to do it.
Yeah, when we talk about the efforts that we made here in this province, it was, all for all the slings and arrows that government gets, the efforts to set up an office in Poland and to be able to welcome Ukrainians to Newfoundland and Labrador, and how well the cultures have melded together is just a beautiful thing.
Yes, it's true. I'm making a small radio show on CHMR. It's called Ukrainizer, and we are talking about Ukraine in Newfoundlander. And before the show, I thought we have a lot of difference, but right now people who came there, they show me so many common things. Like Brian Cherrick told a lot of Christmas here and Christmas in Ukraine, and
Yes.
it's really like we are really closer than we thought.
You took the words right out of my mouth. You just gave me goosebumps. I was just thinking that, we are really. It's why the cultures have worked so well, and why there are communities now within St. John's that I wouldn't have known they were any different. It was always such an easy melt, together. The same personality, same kind of friendliness and welcomingness. I have no doubt of the surety on the other foot that. We would all be...
because you like community welcomed us very warmly, and you did a lot of things, and you helped us. And for example, like first year when we just came, you might go on the street and ask people, do you have Ukrainians in your basement? And I can guarantee like 95% will say yes.
Yeah. Well, it was an easy ask and an easy do. So we can't, it just welcomes it. It's just in our nature, and it's in your nature as well. So it just works so well. Funny how things happen. Everything for a reason, I say.
Yes,
Katerina,
yes,
did you want to?
Thank you for your support. Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
One more time on the concert on Saturday.
Saturday, 7 p.m., Sunflower Duo at the Battery Cafe, and you can buy tickets, I think, at Lacario.io or at the Battery Cafe, as always.
And, it's a great spot, but it's small, so get there early.
Yes, get your tickets early. I already have mine, so I can call and tell everybody else because, my spot is reserved.
There you go. Intimate and interactive, Much Music used to call it, and that's exactly what it'll be Saturday night. Katerina, thanks so much. Got to get off to the break. Good luck.
Thank you so much.
And break legs to the Sunflower Duo. All right, Dave, let's see. What do we got? A couple calls in the queue. We got Chris from Canada Post, and Sarah's going to talk about home care wages right after the break. And welcome back to Open Line. Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly. Today, let's go right to line number one. And Sarah, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm Sarah, and I am going to talk about the disparity between wages of home care workers between the self-managed and the agency workers.
Sure, go for it.
I am a self-managed home care worker, so I currently make less than the agency worker. So this is a very personal issue for me. And I'm just going to read through my letter that I recently sent again to the government to keep this on their radar, and haven't received any responses from them lately. The disparity in wages and benefits between self-managed home care respite workers and those employed by agencies in Newfoundland and Labrador, along with the apathy demonstrated by those in power, has reached a breaking point. Currently, self-managed home care respite workers in Newfoundland and Labrador earn $17.05 an hour. Agency-based home care workers earn $19.45 an hour, and minimum wage, which recently went up, workers earn $16 an hour. Not only are self-managed workers paid closer to minimum wage than their agency-based counterparts, but they are also denied benefits like sick pay, workers' compensation, and some paid holidays, despite doing the exact same job. In 2024, John Hogan announced that agency-based workers will see their hourly wage increase from $17.05 to $21.05 over the next 5 years. He stated he was quoted in a CBC article, "It is a well-deserved wage increase for the dedicated home support workers in our province, and we hope that it will encourage anyone interested in joining this field to pursue their rewarding career." In response to this, I did send a letter to the Office of the Minister of Health and Community Service, which was John Hogan's position at the time, in December 2024, requesting that this oversight be corrected, only to be told that it was in fact an intentional decision they planned to support. Although when I pressed the issue to get clarification on their stance on February 17th, I was told that the matter was under review. Since then, I have sent roughly one email per month to follow up on the matter, and each has either been met with the response that it is still under review or has been ignored entirely. It is now more than halfway through June, meaning this matter has been under review without any publicly visible progress for a full 4 months. Considering the people that this decision affects and the people in their care who will be caught in the crossfire, this level of government inaction is deeply troubling. What I want is the government to give me a timeline on what is the plan to fix this wage gap and make it right.
What is the extreme of the wage gap, Sarah? Just tell me again. It was right off the top. Numbers sort of fly right over people's heads when on the radio. Sorry?
$17.05 and is what I make, and they make $19.45. So it's $2.40 an hour. But in the future, it's going to be $4 an hour. If
on top of
our wage continues to be the same and their wage continues to go up.
And on top of the exclusions for benefits and all that sort of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
Right. Some people listening might go, well, $2 and even $4, $2 from the start, that you think might be able to work something there to be able to bridge that gap. But just tell me the differences. You talk about self-managed home care. How does that put you in a different category than, say, someone who's going to make that extra $4 an hour?
Well, when somebody is approved for home care hours, they're told that they can self-manage hiring their workers, or they can use an agency to get their workers. Agencies have specific hiring requirements, but they don't necessarily have specific training requirements once people are hired. And then people who self-manage, they're not advised on how or who they should hire, and actually my current clients didn't realize that I was making less money until I told them that. Yeah. And of course they were upset about that because they don't see the difference.
And why do you think what's the rationale for the difference? Are they considered a lesser? I mean, there obviously are more regulations involved once you get outside the provincial government managed home care worker. I mean, if you're if it's being privately employed, it's self-managed, there are obviously tangles there as far as the payment schedules and work schedules and employment schedules and different things other hurdles you have to jump over to make sure that the staff that you're hiring are legit. Is that what enters into this? Is there a management side of this that's being sort of accommodated for with the salary? If you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, the government gives the agencies more than $19 an hour for each hour that the workers get paid to cover their costs, right?
Right.
So it's costing the government a lot of money to use these agencies. Now, I used to work for an agency, so I obviously have the hiring requirements to work for an agency, and that's literally the only difference the government or the only response the government gave me to any of my emails was, we don't require self-managed workers to have this, this, and this, but we require agencies to hire people that have those things. Well, those things, that's very minimal. You can graduate high school with those things and then get hired into home care and have no further training. So personally, it's very minuscule. That difference is nonsense.
And on the scale of things, in the grand scheme of things, we know how many families out there would love to be able to provide their own home care. People who need it would rather have a loved one who knows them and can live in the house and take care of it. That's the other issue that we're always trying to strive for, and the government has said that's a priority. To try to.
More consistency. People do find that there's more consistency when they hire, when they self-manage, because they know who's coming in for the shift. When you are using an agency, you're not necessarily going to get the same person, so you don't develop that relationship of knowing each other. And if somebody can't communicate verbally, they need to have somebody around who can get to know them, who knows how they communicate that isn't verbally.
Yeah, I mean, that is the real value in home care. It's the, I don't want to make it sound any flippant or anything by saying it's the personal touch, but it really is. The familiarity with the person and what their real needs are, not just they need to be fed, they need to be changed, they need this. No, it's the little things. As you said, that's the most value in home care when you have it in home, that you know that person, they know you, there's less stress, it takes the pain and the stress of the uncertainty And we went through it with my dad a few years ago. We were facing different options. One of them was to have home care workers come in, but we were told it would be a different person possibly every day, let alone each week. So, you weigh all those things, and then you really struggle, and you make sure you look at options and try to, if you can, find someone in the family, ideally. And not everybody has that luxury. But Sarah, I'm going to give you a minute. We're right up to the top. We're right up at the news. If you want to give you a minute to wrap.
Well, that family member may be putting their whole life on hold to be taking care of this person. Whereas there are people who they want to do this as their job, and they're not putting their life on hold to do this for you and your family member. But I would like people to join the conversation on Reddit. I started a Reddit post yesterday, and we've gotten a few responses from agency and non-agency workers as well. Just to keep the conversation going, people can find it on Reddit. It's under the Newfoundland subreddit.
Got it. On Reddit. Right on. Okay, Sarah King, thanks so much. Keep up the great work and effort. And, we look for some updates from you. I don't know if I'll be here tomorrow or the day after or maybe next week, but please, by all means, give Patty a call and check in if you get any response, different response from government on this really important issue. Thanks for the call.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, that's Sarah there, and off to another Sarah in the newsroom. We'll be right back.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back to the program. Just listening to Sarah there at the news and that story with the shell, Dave, that the guy hauled up, the lobster fisherman over by Belle Island, hauled up into the boat, scraped her off, put her in the back of the truck, took her home, and he's going to be up the creek for a few weeks because his wife did not seem all that pleased with his decisions, to say the least. But I do wonder what happened to it. I know that the police bomb squads came and took it. Did they explode it? Did it explode? Was it live? Did it blow up into like a massive explosion, or was it a dud? Be good to know, just, to see where it ended up and how risky what the gentleman there did was in the end. But anyway, if any law enforcement out there listening, I'm sure we'll follow up ourselves. Let's go right to Chris on line 2. Chris, you're on the air.
Hey, thanks for that. That was interesting, and I felt a little teary over the Ukraine story.
Yeah, absolutely. Always. Just what a great relationship we have forged in a sad, it's the saddest and most tragic of circumstances, but yeah.
So Newfoundland's got it right for that for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I feel bad rant after that beautiful story, but I have a Canada Post rant and a really good reason why we need to stop the farce that is Canada Post now. I very rarely use them for anything. Whenever I do, it's usually problematic. I use Amazon a lot. Amazon almost never ships with Canada Post. But I thought, and this is a good reason, I got a delivery notification on Friday the 13th saying that I'd received a parcel, which I hadn't. So I went to my local post office here in Bay Bulls. They're wonderful there. They're ever so helpful. He pulled the tracking number. I didn't have anything there. He pulled the tracking number up on their system and delivered in St. Jolie, Quebec.
Chris, I just want to make sure, Dave, is the connection? I just want to make sure because I'm losing a bit in my ear. Chris, if you're still there, so you did order a package, though, did you? Because we all get notifications about packages that are coming or might be coming. Okay, so you were actually expecting one.
I was actually expecting one.
And St. Jolie, Quebec?
Got it. So my postmistress said, you have to give Canada Post a call. So I give Canada Post a call, spent almost an hour trying to get around their chatbot animated system, finally get through to a call center in India, talked to a gal there that was not particularly helpful, who escalated it to a supervisor, so I waited for that. Got a supervisor in India, and they told me they wouldn't say how the package ended there because everything on it was actually my information. So my name, my real address, my real email address, my phone number.
Right.
So what sent it to St. Jolie, nobody knows. They put a card out for delivery. Then somebody come in with the card, and this was an ID, identification and signature required. Somebody come in, provided ID that obviously wasn't mine, signed for it and took it. And Canada Post says that this is not their responsibility. The package was signed for and picked up. So I said, but wait a second. It wasn't me. Clearly, I'm not in Saint Jolie, Quebec. I'm in Newfoundland. So it wasn't me that picked it up. So how is this not Canada Post's problem? You gave someone else my parcel, right?
Right.
And they said, well, sorry, this is just their policy. And they actually had the nerve to suggest that I contact the local police authority to deal with it.
And so what came of it? Do you know? I mean, what's the status of that now?
I have a ticket, but they're not going to do anything about it. So I said, okay, can you give me a delivery confirmation? And they said no, because the information on the delivery confirmation with the signature of whoever pretended was me would be a violation of their privacy. So the person that stole my package is being protected by Canada Post.
Oh, my God, what a tie-in. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And it wasn't anything big, but it could have been. I mean, it could have been an air book or something. And Canada Post says, well, because it was signed for and picked up, it was delivered, and it's not their problem.
Well, it's due diligence on that end, but I mean, there has to be some, I mean, errors, human error, errors happen, mistakes happen. We get that. It doesn't necessarily have to be during a Canada Post dispute. Look, we've all had mail go to the wrong house.
Right.
Wrong.
And you say, well, we screwed up and we're going to fix this.
You would think.
Right? No. So I don't know who stole my package, but it was, I'm just stunned that they have zero accountability, and it's actual policy. And they won't give you any more information about anything. It's just somebody else took your package, we gave it to them, and too bad.
Yeah, like anything these days, any organization like that, it's the transparency, the communication, the explanation, the resolving of it, it's just so rare to get there. And if you do, you have to have you need to take a day off or a morning off to get on the phones and to start taking these things on, for a simple fix, you would think. Wrong place.
You would think. Yeah, and it's getting more. People wonder why people are so hostile towards Canada Post. This is one of many, many horror stories I have with them. But this was just, I was stunned. They literally flat out said, this is not our problem. So they created the problem, but they won't do anything about it. I've sorted it out with Amazon, and they're going to reship what I was supposed to get. But that's kind of not the point. It's really concerning.
Yeah, and chances are you'll stick with that other alternate service going forward. I hate to lay it on the, we don't know the I don't know all the intricacies of this and where it went wrong. So you hate to lay it on anyone in particular, including like the frontline workers at Canada Post. To me, it's a communication thing always. If we could just find out what happened, then we can all at least have that off our plate. Okay, now we know what happened.
Benefit from it, right?
Yeah. Just to know what happened.
You go to the whoever actually released that package obviously didn't properly check the ID because they couldn't have had my ID.
Yeah.
So this is a training experience for that person, but they won't even, right?
And in this day and age of checking ID and identification and privacy what a myriad. Chris, thanks for the call, only because I'm up to the break. Anything else you wanted to just wrap up on? I know that there is a vote pending that the federal minister, Patty Hajdu, has she's put Canada Post's latest offer to the unionized postal workers for a vote. They've said as soon as possible, and there are final I don't think the vote has happened yet. If anyone can, Craig Dyer's listening maybe, or someone else would like to give us a little update. But as it stands now, it's going to, the latest agreements are going to go to a vote, and we'll see what comes of that.
I know. I think, they're outdated. They're dodo. They're inefficient. And it just isn't working. I don't think we should be supporting it anymore.
Any information that you get any more on your situation, by all means, if I'm not here, give Patty a call. Give him an update.
Will do. Thanks ever so much. Have a good
God love you.
afternoon.
Thanks so much. You too,
Okay,
Chris.
bye.
All right, let's go. Let's see. Take that break, Dave, and right back with. Let's talk. We're going to talk to Tara Saunders, and Greg knows of these, city councillor. Tara Saunders, the wife of the lobster fisherman with the missile that I just mentioned, or the mortar, or whatever you want to call it, that her husband hauled up off Bell Island. So we'll be right back. Welcome back to the show. Brian Callahan in for Paddy Daly, right to line 3. And Tony, you're on the air.
How are you this morning?
Great, bye. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Still splitting the rocks out there. Yep.
Oh, yeah, it's gorgeous out.
It is.
Yeah, I just long time no talk.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I was going to say, I'll start off first. I'll roll up to the G7. I want to get back to when the election was on the go. When Carney was saying, like, the elbow was up, we're not going to take it. The United States was never going to take advantage of us. We're tired of it. And, the deal we had with dealing with the United States was going to be no more. Things have changed.
Well, I wouldn't say he said no more, but yeah, I mean, we need options.
He said
but
it
anyway.
was dead, basically, yeah. Yep. And he said that was the 27th, and he said, wait, now we're going to match it dollar for dollar, and we were going to get $20 billion out of it. This was the 27th of April. The 16th of April, they went in, the Liberals did, and changed the debt. They canceled all tariffs coming from the States and never told anybody about it. And in fact, when he was out preaching about, remember he was going to tariffs, there's going to be tariffs going to be put on. And he was saying that Trump knows where he's to, and everybody was wanting him to phone him. And he was saying no, and eventually he phoned him. But prior to that, what he didn't say is he was actually talking to Trump several times before that last phone call. So I've seen it in the interview when he was talking about it. In fact, he was saying most of the goods that comes from the States is tariff-free. So, I mean, and then he went to, and just the way he went, and then he said about Pierre going, go to Trump. He said he was going with his knees down, on his knees. But yet, when he met Trump, I mean, he was praising him up about how he's a great president, how he looked forward to transformation president, and who focused on basically the American workers and focused on the borders and basically securing the world. And he thanked him for his leadership. So, I mean, and now you got the G7, and he's up to the G7. And when Trump showed up to the G7, I mean, he got there and he was like a child meeting his staff. He was there thanking him for coming, and he was basically saying that he said that Trump, the G7 would be nothing without him, and he's such a leader. And he said the G7 that the people there, the other leaders there, would be happy to see him because he's the leader of the. I mean, he just praised him up to the nines. I mean, it's just unbelievable what he's doing. It's just like a little boy meeting his hero. I mean, it's just for somebody and that they had a great relationship and they had, and he just went on opposite of what he was saying during the elections. I mean, it was embarrassing for Canada.
I don't think embarrassing is the first word that comes to mind, Tony. First of all, who cares what he said and what he did? Trump was there. The leading, the nation, the world's leading nation, whether you like who's leading that nation right now or not, with his hands full with two major wars and one that's absolutely blowing up in the Middle East, and you're going to words and you're talking about small stuff, Tony. I got to be honest. We have so much.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hear me out. When you talk about the words, and he said this and he said that, if you're trying to follow this moving target. And right now there's status quo and there's no animosity. There are tariffs and they're being negotiated. And God knows I'm no economist and I'm not going to try to figure that part of it out and where we win and where we don't and whether or not it's 250% on milk imports or not. There's reasons behind it all, and we're not going to debate the tariff merits right now on this in a few minutes that we have. But I will say this. I don't know if we could be in a more calmer situation than we were when there was talk of 51st state, when there was talk of Greenland, when there was talk of the Arctic, when there was talk of taking over this and that and the other thing and our critical minerals and how important. And people really had legitimate fears that, oh my God, what is the U.S. talking about here? What is Trump talking about? Is he really talking about what we think he's talking about? There's a calm here right now. There was a meeting of the major leaders. He left early because of what's going on in the Middle East. So he said, but I will tell you, I'll take the calm and the cohesive and the there's a better word for it, but it's just not coming to my mind right now. The non-drama. that has come out of the G7, that they're actually talking about things, and we know how much gets done at these things. It's usually the communique, and then the hard work begins afterwards. But the fact that it was in and out, he showed up, there was no drama, and steady as she goes, I think a lot of people will take that right now. And I mean, you can get into the politics of it all you want. I challenge, who else would be better served there right now to have navigated the last 2 months?
He lied to the people right from the get-go. He lied about right now. Write it down. He lied to the people about he was going to negotiate and we're finished with the states and everything else. Then he went and basically bent down on his knees to Trump. And then he turned around after that and lied to the people about the tariffs that he was going to put dollar for dollar, and he was lied to that because he canceled it in April 16th. And also he turned around and there was no pipelines bill. I mean, there's not going to be no pipelines. He still never lifted Bill 69 or Bill. I think it was
still never. He's been prime minister for 3 months or less.
But sure, what does it take to lift the ban?
A lot, Tony, and you should know that. You know, the competing interests and the controversy over the pipelines has been forever. And, you know, I'm shocked. I mean, are we into his 4th year here, or what? Are you going to wait and see, or are you just going to make your determination right now?
Well, I think it was all planned from the get-go.
Oh, of course it was.
Right from the get-go.
Yep.
And for this all to come down, then now he banned the pipeline. He never opened pipeline yet.
Oh, he's bad, boy. He's bad.
For $10 billion, they bought a pipeline in the United States. And now they want to take the industrial tariff off our aluminum and steel. And it's just, but yet that's supposed to be a good thing. It's just unbelievable.
That's dictated by what's happening. You know as well as I do, that's dictated by what's happening south of the border, Tony. And to make it sound as simple as you make it sound, it's not. And there's a term that that makes us all cringe here in the criminal justice system in this province. It's called tunnel vision. You have it.
But Bill, yes, all he had to do is list the same Bill 48 and the same as Bill 5.
It's pretty simple.
And right now they're saying it's going to be 2 years before it even approved, and you don't even know how it's going to be do it yet.
That's right.
You don't even know nothing about it.
That's right.
I mean, here they are. Just by the next election, then they're going to come out and say, "Oh boy, it's okay." That's like this Auditor General when they come out with this report that they're even paying a company. Yes, $64 million is over $9 million a year, basically averages out, and they banned them for 7 years. So if you're getting over $9 million a year from the government, you don't mind it. And I mean, then they're not going to pay it back. They're not going to get the money off them. They voted yesterday in the House that all the opposition voted for to get this back, and they give them 100 days for to pay it back, and the Liberals voted against it, getting the money back from J.C. Stratus. I mean, it's just unbelievable what they're doing, and they're getting away with it. It's not and then they board $500 billion and never had no budget. Don't even let people know that where they're going to spend it to. It's criminal what's going on there, and it's nothing. They don't have the answer for it. This is what gets me with all this. There's not one person answering for it. So I mean, this should be held accountable, and somebody should be fired. I mean, instead of that, they're even promoting them to different departments. It's unreal what's going on. But anyway. And I just hope that somebody is held accountable for this, but it's not going to be.
Well, anyway. I'm not quite sure what we're holding people accountable after a couple of months in office and decisions that, all the information you have is not all the information you need. That's all I'll say. But it must be great to be Nostradamus, I'll tell you that, if you know what's going to happen in the next couple of years.
Well, he's supposed to be one of the biggest accountants, big everything, and he was going to negotiate everything.
Is.
Now they're going to
He's
go
not
the whole
supposed
summer.
to be. His credibility is, is there. When you watch the respect on the world.
Why don't they put a budget out? Why didn't they work the summer? This is basically we're supposed to be in this dire straits. So why don't he work? That's what he's getting paid for. And
he is putting out a budget now, but I mean that's just because of pressure. If you're not going to give him a chance, then it's just well to hang it up. And I mean, politics is stopping you from giving him a chance, Tony. Let's call a spade a spade. Oh no!
I'm calling a spade, Brian. This is actually what's been happening. I mean, when you go in, you got $500 billion and won't put a budget out. First, you weren't going to put the.
What difference does that make? How much you have? What difference does it make? How much is in the coffers for a budget? I mean, the situation situation is unique to say the least. I'm not defending. I don't have a political stripe in this game. Everybody who knows me knows that.
But sort of sounds like, but at the same time, Ryan, you're not.
There
gonna
you
borrow,
go.
You're
There's your
not going to borrow
tunnel.
a half a trillion. But you're not going to borrow $500 billion over the summer and not saying that the people know where it's going to.
You hear what you want to hear, though. You hear what you want to hear.
But
To suggest that it sounds like it means that you're not listening to the unbiased, unvarnished, balanced opinion that is out there. You know,
Well,
I mean, it's forever and a day.
But you're accusing me of the same thing. I'm telling exactly what I've seen on the House of Commons because I watch it all the time, all the reports, all the interviews. I watch it all. I record everything, and then that's what I speak on. I don't speak on what I don't know. I speak on what I know, and that's what I see. And I mean, and when if you were out there and you borrowed $500 billion, not the people know, and the people is paying for it. This is the people's taxpayers' money, yours included.
Yes, it is.
You know, right? So
That's
I mean,
a
you
fact.
got to know where it's going.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you pay, I'm saying you're sure you pay lots of it.
Yep.
And, but the point of the matter is they're taking out of people's pockets who can't afford it and going out and spending $500 billion. I mean, it's just, and not letting people know. It's just unreal what's going on there.
So just be clear, you're not one-sided. You're not a Tory first. You're completely balanced on your opinions.
Right now, whatever is going on, I don't care who it is right now, because you get past that, everything is going on in the world, and everybody's starving to death. And you got 700,000 children going to food banks every month. There are over 2 million people a month going to food banks. And I mean, there's no time for politics. You just tell that as it is. Make sure that people's looked after.
Music to the...
You know, like you come out, yeah, and it sounds just like that bill they're going to pass now for $100 a year for that for 22 million, and that's up to $800 a year. But yet, there's all this money that they're spending. But this is all going to taxpayers' money. But to me, I just want somebody in there who's going to look after the people, lower the taxes, and put some money in people's pockets so they can afford to live.
Okay, fair enough. I got to get a break. I would just say give him more than 3 months to see if he can pull it off. All right. Thanks very much.
I'm just watching them. I'm just keeping an eye on them.
Yeah, no, we know it. Thanks a lot, Tony.
Yeah.
Okay,
right,
off to the news with Sarah Strickland.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
And welcome back to the show. 20 lovely degrees. Thank you for that, Sarah Strickland. Off to line number 4, and Greg Noser, the city councillor in Ward 3 in St. John's. You're on the air.
Good morning, Brian. How are you today?
Great. You're splitting the rocks. I'm sorry. I'm broken record here, but I can see the sun out there, and I'm so close.
Absolutely. Listen, I hear you. And some of the nice weather is kind of what I want to touch on quickly here before a couple of things just for folks in the community to know.
Yeah, go for it.
And I know Councillor Davis had made a point about fire ban is back in effect for St. John's, Mount Pearl Paradise, so folks, please keep that in mind. But I wanted to add to that point, we've got the water conservation order, which has been in place since way back in 2002 when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. And this is, of course, to make sure that we have ample water supply, whether it's for fighting fires, drinking water, commercial purposes, all that good stuff. So just a reminder to folks that if your street number is even, you can water your lawn between 6 and 8 a.m. and then 8 and 10 p.m. on Tuesdays and Saturdays. And then if it's the odd number, same time frame, except it's Thursdays and Sundays. And then there's a few exceptions there for new lawns and such, but let's all do our part to make sure we're conserving as much water as we can.
Good one.
And just a bit more to a few things going on in the community here, Brian, just for folks to know. I know a number of people reached out, and we're seeing a lot of activity going on. We've got the Monday Pond Regatta is coming up July 5th, so we're only just over 2 weeks away from that. That's going on 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's going to be a great time. There's going to be all kinds of events and stuff. It's a smaller regatta, of course, compared to the larger one down at the lake there in August, but still a great time, and really encourage as many folks to get out and take it in. There's going to be dance after and all that good stuff. And then just building on that as well, just want to provide a quick update on some stuff with the Muse Center.
Yay.
Obviously announced, yeah, I know, it's
you
great,
took the
right?
words right out of my mouth.
Yeah, so announced not too long ago that we've got possession of the building, and I just want to let folks know as well who are using the trail system around the pond and are seeing we've got a number of trees and shrubs that are still wrapped up in burlap and they're staked down. So we're going through the final process for inspecting the grounds around the center itself, and once that is done, we'll have possession of that. Park staff will be able to go in, really clean it up, bring the area to life, and I just want everybody to know that that is coming. We are aware of it. I know it's a bit hard to see the trees now so tightly bound with the new growth and everything, but we are aware, and we're working to make sure that the final inspection takes place, and we'll have the grounds, and it'll be an even more beautiful spot for everybody to take in.
Yeah, it's hard to see the trees for the trees.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, couldn't say it better myself.
And okay. So you mentioned a regatta there, and I don't, not necessarily your bailiwick, but I just wanted, it just dawned on me that the regatta, the St. John's Regatta, and by the way, the Monday Pond Regatta is a rich tradition in and of itself. That's going to be a laugh. And hopefully they get the weather. But St. John's Regatta is falling on a different time this year, isn't it?
It is, yeah. So things are moved a little bit there. We got the Canada Games coming through, which, of course, folks are as excited for as they can be. So stay tuned for that. But, there'll be a slight shift on that. Yeah, I'm just trying to remember the actual date now. But did you have that offhand? I just saw it there on my list. I know it's a question for the Regatta Committee, but I'll get them. Yeah, it's earlier this year, just like it was back in '77 last year we had the Canada Games. It is, yeah. So it'll be Wednesday the 30th, of course, weather dependent. So we're pulling it back just a little bit earlier than we normally would. Yeah. Hopefully the weather is as good as it is right now for it, and the winds stay low, and we can really take it in just before the games kick off and the city explodes with activity. Yeah, that the first, usually always the first Wednesday in August, but exception this year for all those things that are going on. I hear rumors, too, that the Prime Minister might be here. Are you hearing anything on that front? Look, I wish I had that kind of connection. That kind of intel? Yeah, I really wish I did. I can't say. Obviously, we had Prime Minister Trudeau a couple times came down. It'd be great to welcome Prime Minister Carney, of course, to our city. I think we're going to have a great regatta again this year regardless. It's always such a good time. The Royal St. John's Regatta is such an institution of heritage and sporting and all that good stuff here in the city. So anybody who's listening that's also coming for Canada Games, consider coming for that too, because it's a big party. We got George Street Fest. I mean, the number of events we've got going here this summer is absolutely incredible. And it's no better time to, whether you're coming home or you're bringing a few friends, come on down. We want to have you here. On wheels is an understatement. And just the last thing, there are a couple of things. I know that the City Council regular public meeting is this afternoon. There was one there, of course, from last week that I noticed, the continuing story of the Richmond Cottage there at the bottom of Shaw Street. That's going for approval tonight, is it? Development of a few lots there on the corner? That's right, yeah. So it's a subdivision of one of the larger lots into three smaller lots that would allow for single detached units. So obviously, that the McClay place is no longer there with us, an unfortunate reality. But one of the bright spots coming out of this is that we've got some development in the area to bring in some much-needed homes for families, bring a little life in that area. Of course, it's been sitting derelict, well, not derelict, but empty for many years here now. So that'll be coming through. So stay tuned for that. And I think that's another great project. We're seeing a lot of these fantastic uses of spaces that are either cleared or have been underutilized, underdeveloped. So it's a great opportunity for us. And look, I always say this, Brian, if anybody's looking at building a home, we are more than open to it. If you want to start a business here, again, same story. Come and chat with us, whether it's myself, fellow councillors, mayor, deputy mayor. We are really keen and engaged here, and we want to see jobs. We want to see homes for families, and this is what we're all about right now. One last thing, and this is a public safety message. I'm going to let you just take a minute to talk about speeders. Any opportunity that I get from City Council or anyone on this program. It is scary to say the least. I went for a walk with my daughter the other day. One thing I will say, and I don't know if you want to comment on this really briefly, but yes, sidewalk or crosswalks are there to allow people to cross streets, but the people who take it as a God-given right and don't look and just walk right across. I don't know how you do it. I mean, if you're trusting drivers to stop, then you're in a different stratosphere than my brain is. But, I'm watching everything. And actually, I'll hold back from a crosswalk and make sure there's nothing coming before I'll go, just so you don't force somebody to lock her up, But, if you want to just quick speak, I know that we have speed bump programs around the city, and some places have gotten it. I noticed the Empire Avenue one is there now between Circular Road and Empire. I walk that all the time to go to the Dominion down there, and what a difference. Yeah, absolutely. And look, we're keen on making sure we have as many of these traffic programs that work well with the community. The reality is we've got a lot of things to consider. We need to make sure people are able to move around, whether you're a user of a bus, a car, if you're on bike, if you're walking. So we want to have those improvements for safety for everybody, regardless of how you choose to get around the city. Unfortunately, there are folks who just refuse to obey the rules of the road. So we do have to be, if you're out for a walk, or if I was walking through Cowan Heights there yesterday evening, be attentive. You still need to make sure that you're seeing what's happening. This time of year, especially too, where the sun is so strong, if it comes down and it hits someone in the eye, they mightn't even see you. It's not about distracted driving at that point. It's they physically can't see you. So be aware. We need to make sure that everybody's on top of it. And the other thing too, I speak with the RNC regularly. I'm going to be speaking with them today actually. It's if you see something really, I can't stress this enough. Report it. Even if the speeding is come and gone, they need to know that information so that when they're doing their patrols, that they can have people around, whether it's in the school zones, if it's down on Topsail Road, Waterford Bridge Road, wherever. And I know a lot of folks have that bit of a disillusionment with calling the police because nothing happens, that kind of attitude. But if everybody has that attitude, they don't get the information necessary to go out, enforce the rules of the road, make sure that we're keeping everyone safe and protected. So I really do want to hammer home that point. And again, let myself know, let your fellow councillors, whoever represents you in the city, let your MHAs know. It's really important that we keep safety in mind, especially now with schools coming to a close. There's going to be more kids around. Yeah. We did a bike safety event at St. Matthew's. I led a group around the trail system there, and we had some of the RNC out, and it was great to see the kids who are so keenly aware of the rules of the road, making sure they're stopping, looking both ways. But every now and then we have to remind ourselves to do that too. So let's all play our part, make sure that we can all have a safe, enjoyable summer, and that everybody is safe and sound.
Yep. Starts with the parents. Drill it into them. What they see, kids are sponges. They'll soak it up. Great. Off to the break. Greg Noseworthy, thanks so much for the call.
Thanks, Brian. It's always a pleasure. You take care.
Thanks, you too. All right, off to the break. And we're into the home stretch. Let's go right to line number 5. And Lloyd Parrott, the MHA for Terra Nova and the critic for Industry, Energy and Technology for the Progressive Conservative Parties. You're on the air.
Hey, Brian. How you doing this morning?
Great, sir. As I say, I can't take my eyes off the sun outside, so I can't wait. A few minutes.
Yeah, we've certainly been having some beautiful weather, no doubt about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Brian, I just wanted to call in a couple of weeks ago at the Energy NL conference. There was, I guess, some promising news about the Beta Nord project from Equinor and their desire to move things forward. And it's exciting, obviously, for Newfoundlanders and Labradorians, the thought of perhaps getting another rig offshore, developing our resources, and great news.
Yeah, certainly a lot better news than we got 2 years earlier.
Absolutely, yeah. And, perhaps we wouldn't have gotten that news 2 years earlier if the federal government hadn't dragged their heels so long on all the environmental approvals and the things that have handcuffed this province for far too long, as far as I'm concerned. And hopefully they start to see a way to get past some of that stuff so we can move faster. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the provincial government was touting Advance 2030 and talking about 650 projects on our offshore that were as big as Hebron, and now we're scratching just to get this one to move forward. So hopefully those things change.
Yeah, and a big development here, of course, is the fact that, and I covered the Energy NL conference and had a good one-on-one with Tor Loseth, the manager for Canadian operations here for Equinor. The big question, of course, was the fact that the FPSO will be a leased one. They're not going to construct it themselves. They're going to lease one. Now, that may be built by a third party, but whether or not it's specifically for this and whether it gets adapted and that sort of thing. But that's one of the ways they're going to try to reduce the cost with this project. Now, I know at the time they acknowledged that could be harsh for employment jobs here, but I mean, they have to weigh that with to making it feasible. Are you okay with some of that?
Yeah, well, here's what I would say. I would think that right now, it's not a general model that any of the larger offshore oil and gas companies have taken on anywhere in the world. There is no history or historical data that shows any of these companies leasing an FPSO.
Well, Equinor themselves does, and in Brazil and elsewhere. So, I mean, that was the information that not only that we were told, but we were given that, had a good read out there. But
through smaller companies, absolutely. So I just hope that this isn't a way to circumvent a part of the agreement. I would say that whatever FPSO is utilized to go out to Flemish Cap is going to have to be purpose-built. This isn't, this is like going to outer space in some sense. It's the furthest offshore that we'll be developing oil anywhere in the world. the capabilities for
deep water
types of helicopters to land and deep water and all that kind of stuff comes into play. What I would say is that Equinor has in the past showed a model where they would certainly, whether it's leased or owned, they would have the hulls built in other parts of the world, shipped back to Norway where the mechanical outfitting would happen, and look, you don't have to look too far back in history to look at the Johan Castberg, one of their latest FPSOs, where that's exactly what they've done. The hull was built in Asia, floated to Norway, and all of the mechanical outfitting work was carried out in Norway. And I would hope that Equinor would look for a way to try and find a way to put the men and women of Newfoundland and Labrador to work on any kind of construction that happens. I mean, it's part of the Atlantic Accord, obviously. The original agreement was quite small, and this job has changed significantly since 2018 when they first signed this agreement. You know, we've gone from 3 or 4 subsea modules to up as many as 32, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, we have the facilities here in Bullarm and over in Portabass, and certainly in Argentia, and many smaller companies who've proven what they can do in the past. You know, certainly with the building of Hebron, we've shown that we have the capability and the engineering prowess to do this work here. And I strongly encourage Equinor and government, and hopefully there's a new government by the time this contract is put in place. You know, Tony Wakem government would certainly support what I'm saying right now. So I'm hoping that either there's change or Equinor sees the light and understands that a lot of that work should be carried out here in the province.
Absolutely, Lloyd. I appreciate the call. They are, Equinor, you know, have some roots set down here. You know, they've got their hand in the community, and I mean, still a big. You just look at the folk festival. They're a big sponsor, and they're all over that this year. They're here for a while. I think our interests are the same as their interests. I take them at their word. Lloyd, I got to get off to one more call before the end of the show. Thanks so much for the call. Yeah, keep an eye on it. We'll see what their next move is.
All right, fine.
Great. Thanks so much. Thanks. All right. One to finish today. And a short time ago, I just mentioned the story of the lobster fisherman over by Bell Island who had taken up a mortar, you know, apparently a live mortar or a missile, as some of are calling it, from the waters, and placed her aboard the truck and took her home. And lo and behold, his wife wasn't all that impressed. Tara, are you on the line?
I'm here, yes.
Sorry, I didn't mean to make it sound so bad. How is he? Is he still in the doghouse, or what's the story?
Oh, no, not at all. You know, not at all. I can kind of see and appreciate where he was coming from. He got excited, and, you know, little did he know, and I have to say it right off the hopper, is that he didn't think it was going to be alive. You know, there would be no way, if he would have known any different, it probably would have stayed at the bottom of the ocean. But
and it's not like we see these things every day. Yeah, you know, like we see these every day. We know exactly what they look like. So.
Absolutely not. He always said he wanted to see a missile. Well, he got to see it, he got to hold it, he got to transport it with, you know, his skipper. And, you know, it was an incredible day, you know, something that we will talk about for a long time. But no, as far as I know, Brian, the police still have the airstrip quarantined off with police tape. There are officers that are on location around the clock to monitor that this,
really?
You know, artillery shell or missile, whatever people want to call it, is, you know, being monitored until, you know, the professionals can come over. I don't know if they're going to transport it to the other side or try to detonate it here. I'm not sure. I haven't been given an update on such, but it is still currently, as of yesterday, still at the Bell Island airstrip. Nobody's allowed in or out, including air traffic.
And like under guard over there, or?
Yes, yeah. But as far as I know, there are officers that are taking rotating shifts and staying on site.
That seems like it could be.
Goes.
Yeah, I mean, we're not talking downtown St. John's. You'd think that there'd be a secure place that they could just take it and do away with it. I mean, on some value to it. Do you have any more other information on that? It seems kind of strange that it's dragging on.
Absolutely. I figured, you know, they would have had somebody by now, but maybe, you know, other things came up. I don't really know, Brian, my love. But one thing I would like to see happen is that, you know, whether they're able to detonate it off here or it has to be sent, you know, somewhere secluded in St. John's or wherever the case is, one thing I would love is for the shell, once it's cleared and it's safe, to be donated to our local museum here, our mine museum here on Bell Island. It is a rich piece of Bell Island history.
Yep.
And I think that, this is a once-in-a-lifetime thing that has ever happened. I don't know if in my life anybody else is going to pull up a missile from the ocean floor along the coast of Bell Island.
If you're going to, it might be around that area. Not a total surprise. Tara, I'm right up to the top of the hour. Last thing to say before we call it a day?
No, call it a day, Brian. My love. Go and enjoy the sun. And just that people are aware that as of yesterday, it's still being closely monitored with police, and it's still here. If I do have an update, I'll be sure to share it with the public.
Awesome, and we'll touch base with the RCMP to see what status is on that too. Tara Saunders, thanks so much for the call.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care. And that's a wrap. Thanks, Dave. Dave Williams behind the glass. We're off to the news of Sarah Strickland. Drive safely, everyone. Arrive alive. VOCM cares.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.